But if you flip Julian Walker, if you can hold Landon Duckworth, you held the rest of your class as well, it's a pretty good deal. It just is. And so, again, is that the end-all, be-all of everything? Obviously not. There's a lot more work to do. But, hey, you got to take the wins when you can get them, man. There haven't been a lot of them, obviously, since September. So we'll see what happens with Landon Duckworth, and we'll try to keep you up to date on that as I sit here and scroll the old Twitter world on my phone to see for the latest updates and information with all that. Also, Xavier Hardy hitting the portal, the interior defensive lineman, was a big get last year, coming out of the JUCO ranks. If my memory serves me, top-rated JUCO interior defensive lineman, and now is hitting the portal to go somewhere else for whatever reason. Who knows? But Hardy will now take off. He's got a ton of eligibility left, obviously. You're kind of bummed because you were hoping, if not last year, coming up this year, possibly Hardy could really help you after being in the program for a year. He could be part of your interior defensive line rotation once you get into next year, obviously hitting the portal. Nick Sharp hit the portal yesterday. And, we were doing the early signing day show, Jack Veltri and I, live from Firehouse Subs. The French fries are awesome. Main Street in Columbia. We were sitting there gnawing on, brisket, steamer, meatball sub. And, we were talking about, look, this offensive line last year, you just got to get better, right? And if Nick Sharp does have a year of eligibility and decided this is not the place he wants to be for his final season and he wants to move on for whatever reason, you go, okay, understand it. I mean, Sharp was, had some good moments, some bad. He wasn't the worst offensive lineman that South Carolina had. You were hoping he'd be better, though, because, Nick Sharp held his own at Wake Forest. He was better at Wake Forest than he was at South Carolina. And again, we can say, yeah, Tara, well, that's Wake Forest in the ACC, and it's not South Carolina in the SEC. I totally understand that. I do. But Nick Sharp moving on. Who else will move on? Who knows? We'll see. But like Jack and I talked about yesterday, man, this offensive line, however you got to do it, it's just got to get better. Whether it's guys staying who develop and get better, maybe it's a new voice. Maybe it's going to be Sean Elliott as the offensive line coach. But whoever takes over that gig, just maybe a new voice will change things. I don't know. Maybe. Are you going to bring in other players? Are you going to, again, are you asking your offensive linemen to do what they're good at? Everybody's got strengths, obviously. You're playing to the strengths of your players is a huge thing. James Franklin, they grabbed a cut of James Franklin and threw it on social media today. And Franklin was talking about, offensive coordinators. And he goes, basically, like, one of the things that we as head coaches don't nail down hard enough is we look at an offensive coordinator. Is your offensive system flexible enough to be able to maneuver it around the strength of your players? Can you mold your system around what your players can do and can't do, or is your system so rigid you're not going to be able to do that? And you basically are saying, this is my system, this is what I do, and end of story. No conversation. I think it is important to have a guy who's flexible. Flexibility in the system to, match the player's strengths and stay away from their weaknesses. Don't put guys in position to fail. And that's like that in life, right? I mean, please. It's like me walking in and saying I'm going to do brain surgery. So, how much of this that went on with this offensive line this year was the offensive system? How much of what has been going on with this offensive line since I've been here was just a lack of development and a lack of teaching from the people who were coaching the line? I don't know. All I know is this offensive coordinator hire and who's going to quarterback and all these other things we're talking about, none of this stuff matters if the offensive line sucks. It just doesn't. It's got to get fixed. And to me, that's like the number one most important thing that has to get done here for South Carolina offensively is the offensive line. And I do get it. I do understand that the OC hire, we're all going to be on it, right? But at the end of the day, you got to get the offensive line right. Other stories today, there's another offensive member of the coaching staff gone, Marquell Blackwell, who has been at South Carolina a couple years, was dismissed as running back coach. That's 3 offensive assistants gone by. Again, Blackwell, look, talk about recruiting. They weren't bringing in the last 2 cycles. South Carolina had not signed a running back from the high school ranks. They had Amari Thomas out of Florida in this cycle, but Thomas flipped back to Florida State right before the early signing period. The running game wasn't very good, and of course, obviously, the biggest part of that's the offensive line. But still, how much can you control as a running back coach in development of your backs, in what they're seeing, their vision? Do they make the right reads? Do they go to the right holes? Things of that nature. What you're teaching them development-wise that running backs what they can do to help a run game. Maybe the combination of the lack of that and the lack of recruiting. Because, look, obviously, you're the running back coach. You got to be recruiting. And that hasn't worked out at all. This will be running back coach number 3 for Shane. Someone asked me this question today, is like, do you think that Blackwell was let go partly because they're getting close to an offensive coordinator hire, and that new OC is going to want to be able to pick out certain members of his staff? That's going to be interesting as we move along in this offensive coordinator hunt, because obviously Shane loves Mike Furry. Shane loves Sean Elliott. And those are guys that, Shane would probably want to keep. My guess is, in Shane's world, he would probably like to hand over the offensive line coaching duties to Elliott. I could be wrong. And Mike Furry, you saw the development of Nick Harbor. We saw how Jaden Sellers started to develop in year 1, near the end of the year. We saw Dre Jacobs have some really good moments. Wasn't consistent, but some good moments. We've seen Donovan Murph start to get a little bit more run. Brian Rowe, another one. He pop up for a week or two, disappear for a week or two. Pop up back again, disappear again. So at the end of the day, I think the wide receivers, though, you've seen growth under Mike Furry. And there were good things Mike Furry did as a play caller and just taking over the steering wheel of the offense for a bit. Is it enough that I think he should be the guy? No. Nothing against Mike Furry. I just think you got to go out and get a dude who has experience as an offensive coordinator / play caller running a college offense. You just do. To me, that's where it goes. To me, it's, timing also hurts Mike Furry here. But we see Marquell Blackwell out. So the running back coach position is open. Offensive line coach position is open. Offensive coordinator is open. And obviously with an offense that was so bad, that saw the quarterback regress, it has to be fixed. And obviously we're going to be waiting on the quarterback decision. What's Lenore Sellers going to do? So we got a lot of stuff here, I guess what I'm saying. This offseason for a team that's 4-8 missing a bowl game, we got a lot of juicy stuff to talk about, is what I'm saying. So we'll keep, I am doing my best here to keep flipping around to see if we get any information on the Landon Duckworth deal while I'm on the air. Just keep refreshing everything I can refresh. And we'll see what happens. Duckworth's announcement was supposed to be at 3 o'clock. Those things sometimes aren't on time. We'll find out. But there are folks saying he will, they believe, honor the verbal and sign with South Carolina, which would be great with the addition of Julian Walker flipping from Michigan to South Carolina and keeping all the rest of your verbals and getting them to sign, including Darius Gray. It's a good day. It'd be a good day. Be a good day. All right, also on the show, a lot of college football talk is going on, whether it's college football playoff, whether it's coaches doing pressers about the state of college football and the state of recruiting. And then, we didn't talk enough about what happened to Kansas State with the retirement of their head coach. Basically, the word is he just didn't want to deal with today's environment of college football and college athletics. We see it every now and then. The guys go, I didn't get in this for this. That's a mess. I didn't sign up for this. Screw it. I'm out. Now, will that continue on with Chris Weidman, who just retired at Kansas State? Will he just sit out a couple years? Will we wait to see if this thing starts to settle down a little bit? Who knows? But there's a lot of talk about the world of college athletics and the world of college football. We'll talk about that as well as coaches are, they're not happy in all the chaos, the calendar, all those things. We got a lot to get into. And obviously we'll circle back with the Gamecocks as well. We will get some stuff from Shane yesterday discussing a lot of different things, especially with recruiting. But also the OC search. And we're going to get to that next. We didn't get a chance to play this cut yesterday. Shane talking about the offensive coordinator hire. We will have that fire up next. And I sit here and look at David Dare's awesome reindeer sweater that he wore to our little Christmas open house today. Quite stylish there, David Dare.
Thank you.
It's a post-game show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out with us. We go till 6 here on the game. Postgame show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out today. We'll see if we got a little time to get Jay Phillips in with us. If not, we understand Jay's off taking care of the things he has to take care of to get himself healthy again. So we might hear from Jay today. We might not. And if not, we should definitely have Jay tomorrow. We got a wild card showdown we got to get to. We got stuff. We're busy. So hopefully we will get Jay in here tomorrow to do the wild card showdown and other things as he spends some time with us on a Friday. Still scanning around the social media world to see what's going on with Landon Duckworth, 4-star quarterback who had verbal to South Carolina. LSU got into this thing at the last minute yesterday. The last thing I heard and read was Duckworth would today do a signing at 3 and also sign with South Carolina. That was the latest rumor. We're spinning through right now to see if I'm missing anything during the break as we're trying to catch up on everything. So as soon as we find out something and we hear something, we will let you know what is up. All right, also today, obviously, Marquell Blackwell fired. The running back coach is out. Xavier Hardy, interior defensive lineman, joining Nick Sharp on the transfer portal list for South Carolina, going on the way out. We got you caught up there. No new news on the offensive coordinator either at South Carolina. All right, so Shane yesterday was asked about, speaking of the OC, here's Shane talking about where everything's at with the offensive coordinator situation.
Yes and no. I mean, I think there was a sense of urgency. I'm not going to rush it, though, just to say that I hired an offensive coordinator. I'm going to make sure I get this thing right. I realize it's a critical hire. The process has gone really well, Jack. I've had some really good conversations with people that, going back for, a couple weeks that I've had some conversations with and I know we're kind of coming down the stretch on that. There's factors at play. All these offensive coordinators that are interested in potentially coming to South Carolina, they have a signing day today too. So they had their focus on signing day and their own teams and certainly want to be respectful of that, but have had some really good conversations with the guys and a lot of interest in this position. And hopefully we can get down the stretch and finalize this thing here soon. But again, I'm not gonna rush it either just to say we hired a coordinator by the weekend.
I mean, and that's not what you don't want to do that. We've blabbed about this, Jay and I. Look, get it right. You don't have to get it fast, get it right. And I say that about all these information guys in like NFL, for an example, like the Adam Schefters of the world. I don't care if you're first, dude. I just want you to get it right. I go, have the news first. Well, but did you get it right? And usually if they get it wrong, they just keep going to the next one. Not worried about, hey, well, we got that wrong. And that's where you get your credibility issues. But anyway, don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Focusing back on the offensive coordinator hire. You want to get it right. That's what you want to do. Whether it's Coach Decker at Old Dominion, wherever you're going, you just want to get it right. And this is, I know, and I've had people ask me about this whole situation, and I'm just like, look, think about it like this. Yes, it's an SEC Power 4 offensive coordinator job. Absolutely. But if you're being reached out to and you have other options, and most good OCs are this time of year are going to have other options, you're going to look at situations. Okay, all right, let's look at the situation. The head coach. Is there stability with the head coach? Who's the quarterback? Do they have a quarterback? Okay, what's the skill position looks like? What does the offensive line look like? Does this head coach want me to keep any of his current offensive staff, or do I have carte blanche to hire and bring in my own people, obviously with the sign-off of the head coach? All these things are what you're asking if you're an offensive coordinator who has options, right? I mean, you just are. And obviously, how much you going to pay me? Because that can make a lot of stuff better. Like, when you go over all those things we just yapped about, some of those things, South Carolina's in a good spot, and some of those things they're not. But you know what you can be a good spot? Offering someone a lot of money. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, and it's only year one with Tom Allen at Clemson, but that defense kind of regressed a bit or got stuck in neutral, didn't really improve, and wrote a big check for Allen. I mean, sometimes all this stuff works. They wrote a big check for Chip Kelly at Ohio State Buckeyes offense was really good, and Ohio State won a national championship. It just depends. You're always taking a chance when you hire a coordinator. If you hire the wrong coordinator, it can get you fired. Boom, Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's basically his misses on coordinators ended up losing Brian Kelly his gig at LSU. In the beginning, had a really good offensive coordinator and not very good defensive coordinator. Went out and got a really good defensive coordinator, then lost his excellent offensive coordinator, and then didn't hire the right OC. So, and you end up fired. That's why this is a very important hire for Shane. You're coming off a 4-8, and the number one reason you're 4-8 is your offense was. So you've got to get that fixed because your defense was good enough to win this year. Your special team's good enough to win. We said this over his 5 years as a head coach here in Columbia. The one thing that's held the program back has been a consistent offense. So it's time to get that right. Because now there's a lot on the line to get it right. There just is. And I always use the Clark Lee example at Vanderbilt. Here's a guy that changed his thought process. Because, I mean, people forget something. Clark Lee going into 2 years ago was on the hot seat. Vandy had lost, I think it was 1 billion SEC games in a row. Okay, maybe a little bit less than 1 billion. And Clark Lee, you're sitting there at a crossroads. You know, your job is going to be on the line. And then however it came together, you went out and got a high-level offensive coordinator, Tim Beck. His head coach, who could no longer be a head coach because of health issues, but was a very good head coach in Jerry Kill, who's also your offensive analyst because Kill's got a good offensive mind. You bring those two guys to Vanderbilt, and then they bring their quarterback, some guy named Pavia. And then you got out of the way and let those guys run the offense and do their thing and trust that they were going to do it right. And 2 years later, you're 10-2. You're sniffing around the college football playoff. Diego Pavia will probably be in New York at the Heisman ceremony as a candidate or a finalist. And you just got a contract extension. And you just flipped a 5-star quarterback from Georgia to Vanderbilt. If you take a step back, know where you're at, understand the room, open up your mind, evolve from what you've always done, there's the precedent right there is Vanderbilt. You can make this kind of thing happen by, again, open up your mind, taking a different road, and going out and getting somebody who's got experience in doing this really well. It can work. And we saw Shane a couple of years ago from 5-7 to 9-3. And last year with a quarterback that had started as many games in college as Jay Phillips. A little bit more upside than Jay, but still. So the road is there, is what I'm saying. We see a precedent of how you can do this, and it can flip everything. Because, you know, Gunner, Bill had a very interesting, and Bill and Tyler were talking about it on the show. Bill popped an interesting tweet. On this day last year, Shane and Sean Elliott are on stage with Darius Rucker knocking out some wagon wheel. All the comments are love, and Shane's great and wonderful, and the Gamecock football program is fantastic, and all these good things. And like my kid would say, Shane was getting a ton of flowers. Now here we are 365 days later, and there are people who think he's awful and terrible, and you got to run him out and got to get a new head coach and all these other things. 365 days later, this whole thing is flipped. But we do know another precedent is Shane had the 5-7 that was very disappointing. Came back with a 9-3. So again, there is precedent that the coach can get it turned around in a big way. But this time, it's even more important because you can't come back. You can't follow another 4, and you can't follow a 4-8 with a 5-7. Maybe not even a 6-6 because you'll be in year 6. So this offensive coordinator hire, going back to the original point, is massively important for many reasons. Also, you got financial stuff going on. You're redoing a stadium. You're looking to get more money out of your fan base and local businesses and corporate sponsors and all these other folks because of rev share and the NIL world and all this crazy, arms race competition you got going on in college athletics because you got to spend to be good. So a lot is riding on this offseason and this hire. Feel free to drop in your thoughts. 803-404-6100. You can hit us up on the AAA Heating and Air phone line or the Firehouse Sub text line. Jump in with us. We always want to hear from you. We will spin back and hear more from Shane talking about the offensive line and development of the O-line, which, like we said, is the number one most important thing for the football team. Get the offensive line right. It is a post-game show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out with us. We are sponsored by our buds at U.S. Brick, and we are here up until 6 on the game. Okay, it's official. Brandon Duckworth. It's official here. Hold on, let me get it. Landon Duckworth signs with South Carolina. Just done here about 10 minutes ago. It was posted. It's found on social media, Gamecock Central, our buds. It is official. So South Carolina holds on to all of their verbals, and they add Julian Walker on a flip from Michigan. So all in all, not a big class, but a top 20 class for South Carolina. So going through the 4 and 8, and then finding a way to hold on to all of your verbals, and then adding a big flip in a 4-star edge from Dutch Fork, you probably couldn't have asked for a whole lot more. So, good work. Good work for South Carolina in the early signing period. So, yes, Landon Duckworth has signed and will be a South Carolina Gamecock. Post-game show, Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging. Most likely no Jay today. He's got stuff to do more important than sit here and blab with me. But we will have Jay tomorrow. We'll do a wild card showdown, probably early. Sometime possibly, I'm guessing, 4 o'clock hour. Yes. So that will be tomorrow. Tonight on our sister station, B106, by the way, the Gamecock women and Louisville going at it. So that is tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip in the ACC SEC Challenge. Again, you can hear that on our sister station, B106. All right, we've been popping some Shane sound from yesterday. We've talked a bunch about the offensive line and development of the O-line. Here's Shane talking about that yesterday at the presser.
No, it's a fantastic question, and you're right. We've brought in highly ranked recruiting classes, and a lot of them have done some really good things. But then there's also highly ranked offensive line classes, and a lot of them have done some really good things. And some of them, for whatever reason, it hasn't quite worked out. There's some guys that were part of highly recruited offensive line classes that have transferred from here and went to play at a different place or a lower level. There's some guys that maybe haven't developed as quickly. I think it's a few things, David. One, that's a hard position to evaluate for sure because of the level of competition. There's a lot of high school offensive linemen that line up and are, blocking guys that look like Fink on the defensive line. It's a compliment as you get old. And or me or whoever, and it's just a different level of competition. So that's one thing you've got to do a great job projecting. And then two, it's when you get them in your program, you've got to develop them. And we've developed. I mean, Shed started as a true freshman. Josiah started as a true freshman. Tro started as a true freshman. So we've done a lot of really good things from that standpoint, but probably not consistently enough. So yeah, you look at everything. You look at them in high school. What kind of senior years do they have? The level of competition, the overall athleticism, the hunger and the desire to be great. Do they have that? And that's hard to evaluate because we're limited more than ever on how much we're able to go out on the road and get to know these guys. And then you look at everything you're doing within your program, weight room, training room, nutrition, coaching, all that. So, we need to be better, but I know these guys that we just signed have the right ingredients of what you're looking for. When you talk about the linemen that we've brought in here, whether it be from the portal or whether it be from high school recruiting, the ones that were really successful, the Nick Gargiulos, the Torricelli Simpkins, the Vershawn Lees of the world, these guys have a lot of those qualities, and excited to add them here.
So, yeah, look, when it comes to Shane is not going to go, yeah, man, Josiah's regressed, and Ball, yeah, he started, but it's been a mixed bag, and this year, probably a little below average overall, and Tree, we didn't play Tree the last couple of games, and, it's the Josiah Thompson one really is head-scratching to me. And I never played offensive line. I know if you've never met me, you're stunned by that. Like, wow, Tara, a whole 160 pounds, you never played O-line? Man, me playing offensive line, that would have been just ugly. But anyway, I mean, and Ryan Brewer probably said it best the other day when we were talking with him. You know, with O-linemen, sometimes when you come out of high school, you're just bigger than everybody, right? I mean, it's like Blindside, the movie Blindside. You just pick people up and throw them in dumpsters. You're just bigger than everybody. But you get to the collegiate level, and guess what? Now you're not bigger than everybody anymore. And now there's strength and technique and film study and all these other things that come into play. And some guys can make that step and some can't. But that being said, also teaching and development is very important. And look, no offense, Lonnie Teasley was a hell of a recruiter, man. Really good. But the development was just not there. Cason Henry has gotten better. He's the one guy from year to year to year to year. He improved the most from last year to this year. Cason Henry last year really struggled in his first year as a starter. This year, Cason Henry was the team's best offensive lineman, and of course, the way it went in 2025, got hurt. So there was development for Cason Henry, to be fair. But there's so many guys that just have not developed in the fashion that you need them to. I mean, in a perfect world, again, maybe you got to go in the portal to get a center, but you've got, Ball at a guard, Marquis Anderson at another guard. You got Cason Henry or Tree at tackle, or you got Josiah Thompson at the other tackle. These are guys that have all been recruited, and, most of them are at least 4 stars. And it just hasn't worked, whether it's like Marquis Anderson, who can't stay healthy, or the others who just have not developed enough to be difference makers for your offensive line. And it just hasn't worked. And at some point, and Shane got to that point this year, you got to say, yeah, Lonnie, you're a great recruiter, but we got to have somebody here who can also develop these, 4- and 5-star kids when they show up on campus. And it wasn't working. We were talking about Mike Shula not working. Well, Lonnie Teasley just wasn't working in the development piece. For what reason? I don't know. I'm not over there at practice. But it just wasn't working. And you need a new voice, new teaching techniques. Is it Sean Elliott, who's been successful before? Maybe. We'll see. I think it feels like that's where Shane would want to lean. But if you're going to hire a new offensive coordinator, depending on who it is, they might want to have some say in the coaching and in the offensive side of the ball and the coaching staff. Because these are the coaches that are going to be, imparting their system and their message and what they want. But I feel like Shane would love to keep Sean Elliott as the offensive line coach and Mike Furry as the wide receiver coach. But just focusing on the O-line, I mean, Sean Elliott took over, and you really can't judge Elliott on a handful of games with this offensive line in the middle of a season. But if you do keep Sean Elliott as the O-line coach and you give him a whole offseason to start imparting his philosophy and wisdom on these guys, maybe that'll make a huge difference because it starts there. It just does. All right, post-game show. Terry Ford hanging out. Appreciate you, again, sitting with us, talking some Gamecocks. Landon Duckworth, if you haven't heard, has signed his letter of intent or whatever they're calling that thing, his document that says he is a South Carolina Gamecock. So that happened. You saw Julian Walker flip earlier today from Michigan to South Carolina. And a good day. And here's Walker. I will play you. It's only a few. It's not but 16 seconds. It's the tail end of all this. I'm hoping the audio is going to be good enough. But here's Julian Walker's announcement in case you missed it.
At the end of the day, where I'll be spending my next 3 to 4 years, University of South Carolina.
There's the announcement by Julian Walker at Dutch Fork today. He is going to be a Gamecock. So, excellent news. Excellent news. Well, like I said, post-game show, Jay will be back with us tomorrow. Today, going to take it easy a little bit. Again, he's had to go off and do some things he needs to do to, start getting himself going down the right road to getting himself back to what he used to be, or as close as he can be to what he used to be. So he's working on it. And we will have Jay back on Friday, do Wild Card Showdown and some other cool stuff tomorrow. We listened to some Shane Beamer from yesterday and want to hit also the portal. The portal, we've already seen a couple guys go in the portal already. South Carolina obviously will be bringing more people in through the portal to improve a 4-8 team. Let's get to that next. Shane's thoughts on the portal on the postgame show on the game. Post-game show, time to open the vault, let you know what happened. Way back in the old days. Got a couple of Heisman trophies that were given out on this day in history. This guy won one on this day in 1988.
For A&M, swing pass, Sanders at the 25, running room across the 35 to the 40. A good gain, first down for Oklahoma State.
Barry Sanders on this day in 1988 won the Heisman Trophy and then played against Texas Tech in Tokyo. Sanders, this is crazy. Sanders that day ran it 44 times for 332 yards and 4 touchdowns. Set the NCAA single-season rushing record with 2,628 yards in 11 games. 11 bleeping games. Unreal. Barry Sanders was unreal. In college, in the NFL. That's why I got to give the Detroit Lions credit. They were so bad, they forced Barry Sanders into retirement when he was getting ready to, very soon, pass Emmitt Smith as the all-time leading rusher in the NFL. When a guy goes, you know what, I don't want the record, I just can't play for you guys. You stink so much, I just can't do it anymore. But Barry Sanders on this day wins the Heisman Trophy and then goes out in his next game against Texas Tech in Tokyo and runs for 332 yards and 4 touchdowns. Just insane. Also this day in 1982, another phenomenal college back, Herschel Walker, won the Heisman. Beat out some dude named John Elway and some guy named Eric Dickerson. How about those three? Herschel Walker, John Elway, Eric Dickerson, the top three. Any other year, any of those guys could have won the Heisman. So those are a couple Heisman Trophy awards going out on this day as we crack open the vault. As we kick the post-game show, Terry Ford, happy to hang out with you as we go up until 6. Let's grab a little Shane Beamer real quick. We were talking about this. Shane discussed yesterday during his presser, early signing day presser, about the portal needs for South Carolina.
Lines of scrimmage. If you look, and I'm just basing that, Jack, off of the target numbers that we want to have going into every season from a scholarship standpoint, we are under those numbers at the defensive tackle position and the offensive line position. So right away, just from a need standpoint, offensive line, defensive tackle, offensive line, defensive tackle, offensive line, defensive tackle. That we need to get our depth increased there, and we need to certainly not just bring in depth pieces. We need to bring in impact guys that can compete with a already good room, in my opinion. You know, you look at that defensive tackle position with Gabe coming back and Troy Pikes and some of the plays he made Saturday against Clemson, and Devontae Miles and young guys coming in and young guys already here. We've got some good young players, but if you're just looking at the personnel number of scholarship guys that we want to have at each position, we're under there. And as we sit here today, we have, 3 scholarship running backs in our program, and that's literally impossible to go into a season with 3 scholarship running backs with the wear and tear that you have at that position. So we've got to be able to. We didn't sign a high school running back. I don't know if that's a mystery guy, but don't plan on signing a high school running back. And we need to certainly go attack the portal to be able to increase the depth at those positions. But again, I wouldn't close the door on any position because I feel like there's areas where we can always get better and increase the competition at.
Yeah, I love the defensive line, defensive tackle, offensive line, and we'll talk more about that in the 4 o'clock hour. But we'll start the conversation. Obviously, the offensive line it just has to get better. I mean, and who's going to stay? Who's going to stay, and who's going to go? That's what's going to be interesting. We already see Nick Sharp go. What's going to happen with a Josiah Thompson, a Tree Babalati, Trove Ball? What are they going to do? A Marquis Anderson? Some of these youngins who aren't youngins anymore. I mean, Thompson's going into his 3rd year next season. Casey Henry's coming back from injury. He has eligibility, obviously. Tree has been around 3 years now, so is Ball. Marquis Anderson just can't stay healthy. You can't get a read on what Marquis Anderson is or he isn't because he just can't stay healthy. But you can't stand pat hoping these guys are going to get better. And you didn't last year, to be fair. You brought in Pringle, you brought in Newsom, you brought in Boaz Stanley all through the portal, and it just didn't work. Year before, you brought Kamar Bell and Torricelli Simpkins. Simpkins to me, he's been the best offensive lineman I've seen here at South Carolina since I've been watching the Gamecocks here for the last 4 or 5 years. Bell was fine. He was solid. Neither Stanley Newsom or Pringle, or Nick Sharp, I'm sorry. Nick Pringle's a basketball player. Nick Sharp, none of them really stepped up the way Torricelli Simpkins did last year. But you can't stand pat. Obviously, you got to go in the portal and you hope you hit it. So we start off with the offensive line. We'll talk about interior defensive tackle coming up here on the postgame show, hour 2. As I'm trying to get my Nick Sharps and Nick Pringles straight, one thing I do know, if you need to improve your kitchen, your bathroom, your plumbing, your appliances, your lighting, your fixtures, there's only one place. Kreger Showrooms, formerly The Nest, in the Vista and Gadsden. You just call 803-978-2025. You tell them what you're looking to do. They will hook you up with an expert, over 70 years of experience over at Kreger Showrooms. You'll talk to an expert. They'll kind of get your idea, your budget, vision, what you want, your taste. Then you come in, you walk the showroom. I'm telling you, your mouth will not shut because the showroom is phenomenal. They'll sit you down, and you'll put together a plan, and you'll end up being very happy. 803-978-2025. Again, call the folks at Kreger Showrooms on Gadsden in the Vista. Go in, get it done, be happy. Experienced people know what they're doing. Kreger Showrooms, formerly The Nest. Post-game show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out with us as we go up until 6 o'clock. A couple headlines in case you haven't really cracked open the old social media or the internet or the radio. First of all, South Carolina flips Julian Walker. A verbal to Michigan. Obviously, that's been a battle. Walker was supposed to, step it up yesterday and throw his verbal out, or take the verbal and make it, a signed document for Michigan with his announcement. Held out, decided, no, we're going to do it on Thursday. And the hope was, if you're a Gamecock fan, saying, ooh, that's good. He didn't sign with Michigan. Means he's thinking. Thinking, obviously, again, a good thing. Julian Walker, after thinking about it, the Dutch Fork Edge instead signs up with South Carolina. And Landon Duckworth, a lot of stuff going on there. Yesterday, Duckworth was ready to sign with South Carolina. LSU made a late push with Lane Kiffin. Kiffin had recruited Landon Duckworth at Ole Miss and gave it a push. Duckworth gave it a day to think about it and decided not to flip to LSU, but to continue his commitment. And Landon Duckworth here in the last hour signs his document to play at South Carolina. That gets you caught up there. We were talking a bunch, getting some sound, and didn't get a chance to really highlight a lot of this yesterday. Shane Beamer talking in his early signing day presser, so we're getting some of those cuts out today. And also we will hear from Lamont Paris on the show. Carolina calls last night, the Carolina men's basketball coach, discussing a variety of things, and we'll get into that stuff also on the show. So Shane in the last segment was talking about what he needs in the portal. He talked about interior defensive line and offensive linemen. The interior defensive line, you do have Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy coming back. Darrell Pikes made some plays in that Clemson game. Devontae Miles, obviously, is a veteran. You got out of the portal from the MAC, and he has eligibility for next year. But you want to add some more depth. Goodwine and Barrett are gone. The two interior defensive linemen have run out of eligibility. So now, you got three guys you like. You lose Xavier Hardy. Last year, your big JUCO get is hitting the portal. He made that announcement today, as did Nick Sharp, offensive lineman, or I like to call him Nick Pringle. Nick Pringle playing offensive line would be interesting. But anyway, so Nick Sharp is in the portal. Xavier Hardy's in the portal. But you would like to add another defensive lineman or two. Makes total sense. And on the offensive line, we had talked yesterday in our early signing day special in the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Wes and Chris had a conversation with Darius Gray, the top-ranked recruit in this class. And, listen to Chris Clark, who has watched a good amount of Darius Gray in high school. Chris thinks Darius Gray possibly could start next year, or at least get some playing time at guard. So we'll see where he goes in the mix. But, going back to the interior defensive line, you do want to go grab a guy or two out of the portal to, if nothing else, look, you need competition everywhere. You do. And as much as Pikes and Miles and Brownlow-Dindy can give you a nice quality rotation, doesn't hurt to add another name or two out of the portal on the interior defensive line to get your number, if nothing else, to get your numbers up. So that's Shane discussing the portal. We've seen there's been a lot of talk going on about college football, and we're going to try to grab some cuts through the show. Different folks in the sport talking about different things and where things are at. Now, there's a lot of coaches, and I get it. They say this thing's broke. And, it depends on what your level of broke is, right? I mean, there's things that break, right? And you go, I can glue that back together. Or you break something, you're like, I think I can fix it. Or I can still use it. Then there's broke where you're like, oh, hell, we got to throw this thing in the trash. College football or college athletics aren't broke to where it's like we got to throw them in the trash. But they're broke because, look, the truth is, and we've talked about this over the years, Jay and I, everybody's out for themselves. They just are. And if you don't have someone in charge who's looking out for the collective, then everybody's looking out for themselves is just going to keep looking out for themselves because, again, Greg Sankey was not hired to be the commissioner of college football or be the grand lord or the grand ruler of college football whose job is to make college football healthy and fair. Greg Sankey was hired to do everything he can to make the SEC the best conference in collegiate athletics and to make the most money and have the most championships. And Greg Sankey, he answers to the SEC. And if Greg Sankey's out there, well, I want to make the world a better place. The SEC's, no, dude, you're here to make the SEC a better place. Screw the Big Ten. Screw the ACC, even though the ACC is doing a good job of doing that to themselves. Screw the Big 12. We don't care about them. We care about us. And you better care about us. First and foremost. But, Tony Petitti of the Big 10, Brett Yormark of the Big 12, our guy Phillips of the ACC, all of them were hired to do what's best for their conferences, not college athletics. And that's the problem. In professional sports, you have this thing called a commissioner. Now, is he paid by the owners? Yes. Can he be the schmo for the owners? Yes. But he also is someone who is looking out for the overall sport in some way, shape, or form. And the good commissioners do a better job of walking the tightrope of, well, I know you guys pay me, but still I'm going to tell you kind of what to do or what we should do. But that's what a commissioner's there for, to look at the what's overall good of the game with the idea that the owners pay them. You don't have that in college athletics. There's no one. The chairman of the NCAA is a stooge, not to be mean, but you are. You're a stooge for the real powers that be in the world of college athletics. You don't run the NCAA. You're the face for the people who really do run it. Like, again, a commissioner in professional sports is the face of the guys who really run it. It's the owners. But the good commissioners know how to work the room and sit with them. We'll use the NFL. You got 32 owners with 32 different agendas. It sounds like college football and basketball. And the job of the commissioner is to make them all understand we've got to do what is best for the greater good so our sport can be as healthy as possible and thrive. And sometimes you have to give up a little something in the short term to make you a lot healthier in the long term, or to make our sport healthier so we all are going to be looking really good and shoveling in money. And college athletics doesn't have that person. You just don't. So, and I don't know when that's ever going to happen because, again, the SEC likes where the SEC is. The Big Ten likes where the Big Ten is. They don't want to hand over any of their decision-making power to a higher entity. Why would they? They're out for themselves. And that's the problem. No one is looking out for college athletics, the greater good. And the NCAA, I'm going to try to be nice because, I'm older and more mature and I'm trying to be a nicer human being. The NCAA is a bunch of hypocrites and liars. Too harsh? They're even looking out for them. This whole quote-unquote amateurism is just a way to not pay athletes for years and years and years. That means there's more money for you. Very simple. They're like Britney Spears' dad. Looking out for yourself, trying to hoard as much money as you can. So no one is truly just in it for themselves. I mean, in it for the good of the sports or the athletes or what's good for the games. And that's your problem. That's why you got this dumpster fire. But I also think this. There's an old saying in radio, and it's not as prevalent now because we've gotten very corporate in the radio business. But there's no such thing as bad publicity. There's just, are you getting talked about? Good. It's a good day. No, they weren't talking good about us, but they were talking. I almost feel like the NCAA at times goes down that road. I really do. I think that they believe that, hey, they're talking about us. Hey, we do this dog and pony show every Tuesday with the college football playoff. We have a committee, and we know they make no sense. There's no consistency. And there's no ground rules or criteria or system of picking these teams. And we like it that way because these people get up and they blather nonsense, and everyone's going to talk about it that night and the next day. And on everybody's tongue, they're talking about college football. That's good. Yeah, but they're not talking good about it. We don't care. They're just talking about us, baby. And they also know, just because we're fans. It's who we are, that we keep coming back. We might hate this sport Sunday through Friday. But you know what we're going to do on Saturday? Watch the game, go to the game, follow the game, keep up with the game. They got us. And they know they do. It's the way it is. Why do you think all this money's being paid to these conferences for TV deals? People are watching. And with these new metrics from Nielsen TV, all the numbers are crazy right now. The Cowboys and Chiefs were the highest viewed NFL regular season game ever. And part of that's new metrics through Nielsen, a truer gauge of audience. So you got all these numbers saying a lot of people are watching. TV networks like it. They get a ton of advertising dollars. That's why you got all this dough. So maybe college football is going, yeah, talk crap about us. Talk about our stupid committees. We know it's dumb. We don't care. Because whatever 12 teams we put in this dog and pony show, you're going to watch it. And we're going to have numbers. So there's a part of me that thinks they like all this. They like us screaming and yelling and calling them names and everybody putting up their scenarios for the college football playoff and who's getting screwed and who's not, and SEC bias and Notre Dame bias and the little guy can't win and all that other mess. I think they sit back, put their feet on the desk and go, oh, they're talking about us, baby. We're in the news. We're getting more run than the NFL tonight. Look at us go. I think that sometimes. I think they're taking the old adage, as long as they're talking about us, we don't care. All right, Shane Beamer yapping with the media yesterday, discussing a variety of things. And I want to get to this, talking about, what's the best one here? Quantity over quality when it comes to this recruiting class, because it's not a big class. But Shane talks about the quality of the class compared to just having a bunch of guys in the class, like a North Carolina who had 40, I think it was.
Everybody looks at signing classes and the number of guys that you sign. This is not a huge class, but if you talk about quality over quantity, we absolutely hit the mark on that. Everybody's got their different rankings, but I think I said this Saturday after the game in regards to average star rating. This is a top 10 class in the nation, and we're not done yet. As we finish up, these guys are big-time people. As I said, we had certainly a tough year on the field, but most games when I came in the locker room or I got done in the press conference with you guys after the game, usually when I pulled out my phone, the first text messages I had after the game were from these guys because they believe in what we're doing. Their families, I usually would hear from their moms and dads as well, and they believe in what we're doing and they know how close we are and they want to be a part of this without a doubt. So, 9 of these guys will be here with us in January when we start spring practice. Could be, could be more as we go down the list, but that's the ones that we're able to talk about right now.
So there's Shane discussing the quality of the class. There's a bunch of 4-stars in this class. I think out of the, 15 now. Out of the 15, 10 of them are 4-stars. I'm doing that off the top of my head. So I'm probably wrong. Because, you ever start, you're sitting there, man, I might have to go to the men's clinic in South Carolina myself. I talk about it all the time. I might have to go. Brain fog's killing me. But, so, 10 out of 15 are 4-stars. That's a good percentage. It really is. So, it's a class where you've got a couple guys who maybe Darius Gray sees the field as a guard his freshman year. Maybe does Julian Walker from the edge get on the field? Does Currents, the corner from Rock Hill, get on the field? Because, again, Judge Collier, Brandon Cisse, my guess is we'll go into the NFL draft. Well, he'll be a late first round, early to mid second round pick. DQ Smith is his eligibility, I believe, is exhausted as well. You have, Kilgore might end up going to the NFL draft, even though his draft stock got hurt this year. Jalen Kilgore was looked at as a mid to low first round pick coming into this season because Kilgore was really good last year. But this year, remember, Kilgore was hurt early. I don't know if that lingered through the year. He had a couple of really good games, but he also had some games where he struggled. I mean, the Clemson game was a struggle. Chasing around Antonio Williams, just Kilgore had a tough time. So, all right. Post-game show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging around. Steve Sarkisian talking about scheduling philosophy since, of course, he thinks Texas got screwed. That's next here on the game. All right, we're rolling the postgame show. Appreciate you hanging around. Terry Ford, Jay Phillips will be back with us tomorrow. I got my hat on because I got buffed upside the head yesterday. Yeah. Not a good look. Don't need to look at my buffed head on the video. Might have to wear it again tomorrow. It depends on how the buffage goes tonight. You know, when you don't have enough hair to cover when you get buffed on the head, it just doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. It's like, who beat the hell out of you? I buffed myself. So anyway, appreciate you jumping on our live stream. And the chat's always cool, and we love it when you folks chat with each other. And throw out your opinion on what's going on with the Gamecocks, what we're saying on our YouTube channel at the Game TV Radio. Also, our app at 107.5 The Game. You can go get it, whatever kind of phone you have. Go find the app, download it. You can listen anywhere. Obviously, your device. Whatever you're tuning in on. And real quick, going down that road, today we've had a technical issue, and I'm not going to bore you with the radio stuff, but we have this thing called a transmitter, and it transmits our radio station. And we've had an issue with it today. It popped up sometime late this morning, and our engineering crew is working on it. As soon as they get it fixed, thank God, that'll be great. If you do, listen and there's static, and we appreciate the folks who have reached out to let us know. Thank you. If you do run into the issue, just pop the app. Again, you can grab it on your phone, your laptop, desktop, whatever. Or you can go to the website and listen live as well at 1075thegame.com. So again, we understand it's an issue. Obviously, we didn't start out today and go, hey, let's go screw that transmitter and knock ourselves off the air. That'd be a great idea. And it's not off the air; it's like a low power kind of thing. But there are a lot of spots where it's not coming in like it usually does. So thank you. If you did reach out to us, we do know there's an issue. We're working on it, and at some point, ASAP, it will be fixed. In the meantime, please feel free to drop the 1075 The Game app, or go to 1075 The Game and click Listen Live, and that way you can hop in with us. But again, we apologize. We didn't do it on purpose, but we're hoping to get it done as soon as we can. All right. So Steve Sarkisian, look, Texas. Look, there's a lot of obviously the college football invitational, because that's what it is. It's not a. You get invited, right? That's what it is. It's an invite. We're getting invited to the party. And, we've heard a lot of the Notre Dame-Miami fight. And I've said this, the metrics are close, right? They are. And when the metrics are this close, the head-to-head definitely should matter. Again, if Notre Dame is 11-1 and Miami is 9-3, no. The head-to-head doesn't matter as much, obviously. But when you've both got two losses and your metrics are very tight, that head-to-head game has to matter. I don't care if it was in September, July, November. I don't care. It needs to carry some weight. It just does. And Notre Dame fans will defend Notre Dame's resume. Miami fans will defend Miami's resume. Notre Dame fans will say, but Miami lost to two unranked teams. Miami fans say, well, who the hell is Notre Dame beaten compared to who we've beaten? The whole resume should matter, yes, the whole season. But again, when the metrics are this close, and Miami and Notre Dame's metrics are close, I think the head-to-head should matter. And we'll find out, won't we? But now Texas has been thrown into this, 9-3 Texas, because Texas has some good wins, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt. But Texas has 3 losses, and one was the worst loss of all of them to Florida. So Steve Sarkisian is talking about scheduling. Because, again, remember, Ohio State and Texas played early in the year. And there are people like Steve Sarkisian and Texas fans that say, hey, we went and played Ohio State. So we're getting penalized for scheduling the number one team in the country and losing at their house. Here's Steve Sarkisian talking about future scheduling.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. There's layers to this. Bear with my answer. First of all, we're going to honor Ohio State and Michigan. You know, we went there, we went to Ann Arbor, we went to Columbus, and we're going to honor those return trips. So for the next 2 years, we know what our non-conference schedule is going to look like, and that's the right thing to do. We made the commitment to play them. Now we'll honor that commitment for them to come play us here. I think anything beyond that is up for discussion. We need to, in CDC and I have already had that discussion, we need to take a good hard look at what our non-conference schedule looks like beyond the next 2 years. Because you got to remember, you know, so much of the non-conference scheduling was when we were in the Big 12, and these schedules were made when we were in the Big 12. Well, there's a little bit of a different shift now that we're in the Southeastern Conference, and another shift now that we're going to 9 conference games. And so we've got to be mindful of one, putting our players in the best position to have success and to have growth. 2, we got to be mindful of how the committee is going to evaluate to put the best teams into the college football playoff. Now the goal is to go win the Southeastern Conference every year, and when you do that, you don't have to worry about what the record looked like, and you probably have a good record if you're in that game and winning it. But I also need to look at what the committee has shown me over the last 2 years since we've expanded to 12 games. They care about your record, and so we've got to be mindful of that as we go, and we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, and I get where Steve Sarkisian is heading to, is you're playing 9 conference games, the toughest conference in America, and this committee does look at wins and losses. They just do. And strength of schedule, it depends. They look at it if it fits their agenda, right? But if it doesn't fit their agenda, they don't look at strength of schedule. They look at head-to-head if it fits their agenda. They don't look at head-to-head if it doesn't fit their agenda. I think that's my thing. You know, you can stump for Notre Dame, Texas, Miami, BYU, you know, whoever, and pump their resume up because, I mean, that's your team, and I get it. But the problem here is the fact that we have a committee that just kind of moves the chess pieces around to fit their agenda. I said this at the end of last year. I said this a couple years ago when Florida State got screwed. You need to have a criteria, just like the NFL does for tiebreakers. What matters? What matters in this process? Head-to-head, that should matter a ton. Strength of schedule, that should matter a ton. Non-conference strength of schedule, that should really matter a ton. All these things should matter. You want to throw in other things like your one-loss record versus top 25 teams? Fine. Margin of victory or loss versus top 25 teams? Okay, throw that in too. What the hell? You want to start throwing in, you know, part of the formula is, you know, how a team looks with efficiency on offense, defense, and special teams. You want to put that later on down your list of criteria? Fine. Whatever you want to do to build this thing, there's got to be a criteria. If not, you got a bunch of non-objective people in a room kicking chicken fingers and drinking God knows what. They're just making it up as they go along. And when they talk about it, they sound not very good. We'll talk more about the Texas issue in general coming back as we get into this conversation. Terry Ford, it's a post-game show. We appreciate you hanging out with us. We are rolling until 6 again. The women on our sister station, B106, tonight against Louisville, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip. More on this college football playoff mess next on the game. The roadways, we always have our construction. Never ends. Same spots as always. Never ends. We'll get you caught up on the accidents shortly. See what's going on the roads. Now they've picked up since the holiday weekend is over. We'll get you caught up there. But the road construction, it's the same spots we always see. So just kind of maneuver yourself around them. Weather, kind of dreary. A little sprinkly with rain every now and then. High right around 50 like all day. Like I said, we'll get you caught up top of the hour on what's happening, any traffic accidents. And there's a bunch, matter of fact. All right, post-game show. Appreciate you hanging out with us. 803-446-6100. That's our AAA heating and air hotline and the Firehouse subtext line. And again, yes, we understand there's some there's an issue if you get in the car and you flip us on and you heard that. We got a little transmitter issue that we're working on, but you can listen to us on the app and also on our website. So, but thanks again for if you were one of the people who hit us up and said, hey, we're having trouble picking you up like usual, we appreciate it. We thank you. We're aware of the situation, trying to get it going, or you can go to our YouTube channel at the Game TV Radio and stream us. And you can see my cool hat. All right, we're having a conversation about this college football playoff nonsense, and it's nonsense. Look, let's just call it what it is. But we love the nonsense. We do. Because we watch. Well, Steve Sarkisian, we played a cut in the last segment. Sarkisian talking about the future of their scheduling, and they're going to honor their, deals with Michigan and Ohio State because they've had those deals on the table for a few years. But after that, Steve Sarkisian's like, I don't know how we're going to go moving forward. We have 9 conference games. Obviously, this committee cares more about wins and losses than strength of schedule. And he's not wrong. They've proven it. And at the end of the day, something's got to change with that. This idea, I mean, again, look, one-loss record should matter, but if a team that's 11-1 plays a crap schedule and a team that's 10-2 goes through a gauntlet and landmine of a much better quality of opponent than that team that, is one game better than them, that's got to be taken into account. It just does. And right now, this committee does not do that at all. And that's an issue. If you look at Notre Dame and Miami and Texas and all this, we'll start with Texas really quick. Steve Sarkisian jumping up and down and screaming that, and we've heard other Texas people do the same thing. Wow, we're being penalized for losing to Ohio State. No, you're not. You're being penalized for losing to a bad Florida team. You got beat by a bad Florida team. You just did. You were a double-digit favorite in Gainesville, and Florida beat you. They handled you. That's what you're getting penalized over. You're not getting penalized over losing to Ohio State. Matter of fact, people are applauding you. Nobody played Ohio State closer than you, Texas. You also have 3 good wins, A&M, Oklahoma, and Vandy. Problem is, you lost to Florida. That's the problem. You win that game, you're 10-2, and you're in this thing. You're ahead of Notre Dame. And we're not having this Notre Dame-Miami conversation because Texas is in and you bump Notre Dame and Miami down a notch. But you aren't 10-2. And you fall to 9-3 and you have this ugly loss that one-loss record matters. I think it shouldn't be the end-all, be-all, but we're sticking with the criteria we see in front of us. One-loss record, unfortunately, matters more than your strength of schedule and things of that nature. So in that vein, you're 9-3. That pushes you back behind 10-2 teams, except, of course, Vanderbilt, because we'll get to that at some point this week. But if you, Texas, beat Florida, who you should have beat, nobody's talking because you're then 10-2 and you'd be ranked ahead of a 10-2 Miami and a 10-2 Notre Dame. And you're in. You just are. So stop with the, if we would have scheduled a cupcake instead of Ohio State, yeah, you'd be 10-2 still, but your resume wouldn't be as good. I shouldn't say this because here's the way it should be. You should be applauded for playing Ohio State. If this thing was done the right way, which we know it's not, it should be, man, you played Ohio State in Columbus. Way to go. Way to go, Texas. You should get more run for going to Ohio State and losing than for Alabama. And look, Alabama's got a good resume. I'm not picking on them. But Alabama beating Eastern Illinois 56-0. You should get more points for going to Columbus and playing Ohio State to a 14-7 game than Alabama should be for smacking the heck out of whatever Eastern Illinois is. But that's not the way this works. You got a loss. Ding. You get dinged for the loss. Alabama gets, they had a win. It matters with wins and losses. And that's the world we live in right now because there's really not a criteria to look at your losses and wins with any kind of deep dive. I'm looking at the college football playoff right now. The two undefeated teams are at the top, Ohio State, Indiana. Forget their strength of schedule. Forget who they played, they didn't play. They're 12-0. Then you have a bunch of one-loss teams with Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, Ole Miss, A&M. Then you get the two-loss crew, Oklahoma, Alabama, Notre Dame. Now you got one outlier here, that's BYU. BYU has one loss. It was to Texas Tech, and BYU got throttled, but that game was in Lubbock. But you look at the rest of BYU's resume, they do have a win over Utah. Utah's 10-2. Utah's 23rd in the college football playoff. But that's the only win you have against a ranked team. You get dinged for that. You just do. And so BYU's sitting there at 11-1, and plus the Big 12 gets dinged for being the Big 12. Now, is that fair? You can bat that around all you want, but the SEC teams will get more street cred than a Big 12 team. Notre Dame gets more street cred than a Big 12 team because, College Football Playoff Committee wants Notre Dame in because Notre Dame is Notre Dame. So that's the way this thing goes. If you're Texas, you win that game over Florida, you're 10-2, and your 10-2 would put you in the college football playoff. So it's nothing about the Ohio State game. It's about losing a game you should have won against Florida. That's just me. All right, appreciate you hanging out here on the post-game show. Jay will be back tomorrow. We'll do Wild Card Showdown probably 4:30-ish, depending on how Jay feels. We'll do it tomorrow, though. So be ready for that as we get our buddy Jay Phillips back tomorrow in the co-host chair. Well, the co-host couch or whatever he's sitting in at home. And tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip, the Gamecock women will host Louisville. You can hear it on our sister station, B106. And tomorrow night, this is really cool, and this is the first time we're doing this. And I want to thank the folks that work the state championships in high school football in the state. They really helped us out. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., 7 to 11, our high school football scoreboard show live from the state championships in Orangeville. It's going to be fun, going to be cool. First time we've done this. We're always looking to try to do stuff, and this worked out well. Sometimes we try things and we fall on our face. But we've got this set up. We're really excited about it. Elijah Campbell, Justin Hall, live from Orangeburg at the high school football championships on Friday night for the Friday night high school football scoreboard show starting at 7 right here on the Game in Columbia, 107.5 The Game. All right, we will spin this sucker around. Hear from Lamont Paris. He was on Carolina Calls last night. Lamont, talking about a variety of things. One of them, this team was really crushing it from three early in the year, and now, well, they're kind of cold from three, and they took half of their shots from three against Virginia Tech and made under 30% of them. So we're going to hear from Lamont Paris from Carolina Calls last night talking about the three-point shooting woes of South Carolina men's basketball. That's next here on the Postgame Show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out. We go till 6 on the Game. Oh, post-game show. Terry Ford hanging with you up until 6. We'll get back to talking Carolina football. In case you didn't hear, Landon Duckworth, 4-star quarterback from the state of Alabama, did sign his letter of intent with South Carolina today. Julian Walker, 4-star edge from Dutch Fork here locally. South Carolina did successfully flip Walker from Michigan to the Gamecocks. So that happened today, in case you didn't hear. Nick Sharp, offensive lineman, hit the portal yesterday. Today, Xavier Hardy, interior defensive lineman, also jumped into the portal. That's the second South Carolina portal loss in 2 days. And we'll circle back on all that, obviously, here in just a little bit. Plus, we'll hear Shane Beamer talk about the latest on Lenora Sellers, Dylan Stewart, and Nick Harbor. Shane talked about it yesterday. And also, Shane will discuss leadership, because that was a big thing we got into with South Carolina football this year, the leadership part of it. But last night, Lamont Paris on Carolina Calls. Look, South Carolina early in the year was crushing it from 3. They've gone cold here lately from the three-point arc. Like I said, they shot under 30% from 3 against Virginia Tech Tuesday night, but took half of their shots from 3. 60% inside the arc, but just kept gunning away from 3. So here is Lamont talking about the three-point shooting issues right now at South Carolina.
For the most part, I thought there were a couple times. Elijah had a couple of tough looks, really 3. If you look at it, he was 1 for 9. Mm-hmm. He had the one that he made was a very difficult one. He had to take the one at the end. He had to take the one at the very end of the game. And then he had 2 that I think he would also agree probably weren't great looks. But the rest were pretty good looks. I think some of the looks, if you look at the shot that Eli Ellis had right in front of our bench towards the end of the game, if you look at a couple of Michi's shots from 3, if you look at Grant Polk's both threes, he made 1 for 2, but they both were good looks. I do think we're getting some good looks. Part of it, too, is that, we're developing as who can generate offense around the basket. That's always a component for me, and some of that's happening. Michi's been driving the ball to the basket better. Elijah Strong's been better in back-to-basket and mid-post situations. Those will be reliable sources of offense. Mike Sheriff Jumps is a guy that we're going to intentionally have generate offense from somewhere around the basket, mid-post, face-ups in the elbow area, whatever that looks like. So in the meantime, the byproduct has been probably even more threes. So my guess is that probably that number, from a percentage standpoint, comes down a little bit. But we want to shoot whatever shot is open that the defense gives you. But I think the looks that we're getting are good looks. We have shown that we make them. We need to get back to making them and revert to the average.
I mean, good shots are good shots. I agree 100% on that. Good shots are good shots. But some of these threes have not been good shots. I mean, Lamont brought up Elijah Strong. I mean, the one was a heave at the end of the game, the 1-3. So really, Strong's 1 of 8. But still, 1 of 8's bad. I mean, you're gonna have nights. If you've ever played basketball, you're gonna have days and nights where you play ball, you get a good look, and you just can't make it. Basketball's a miss or make sport, obviously. And there are going to be nights where you're shooting threes and it's just not going in, whether it's, you're rushed a little bit, you're off a little bit on your mechanics, or it's just not your night, whatever. And on those nights, though, especially if you're making buckets inside the three-point line, and Elijah Strong was really good inside the three-point line against Virginia Tech. Strong made some huge buckets in that game in crunch time inside the arc. So you would hope that would be a kind of thing where, okay, you're in a game now where your three-point shot isn't falling. It happens. Even Steph Curry has bad nights occasionally. You're doing damage inside the three-point line. We'll go there tonight. Look, Elijah Strong last year hit 36% of his threes. I think the year before was like 30%. This year, he's under 30. He was like 27, 28 going into the game Tuesday night. Now he's down to like 22 or 23. The three-point shot's not falling for you. Okay, dude, pack it away a little bit and start concentrating on what you're doing well tonight. And that's attacking and scoring, in a variety of different ways. I go to the Michi shot at the end of the game. You're down 2, and Michi has made threes from the parking lot, but it's not a high percentage shot. I feel like he could have got a better shot down 2 than what Michi got. I really do. I mean, it was 12, 13 seconds on the clock when South Carolina got the ball. Michi took that shot, I think, at 3 seconds. It could have been a better shot. Or if you're going to take a 3, get closer. You don't get extra points for making it a 30-footer. But again, you're only down by 2. And Michi's been really good at driving the rock to the rim. Take it to the hoop. Go to the rack. Could get fouled if they collapse on you. Someone's open for an easy deuce. Or you finish yourself. It's a tie game. That shot, well, again, not good shot selection. I mean, South Carolina showed early in the year they can make threes, and they've been taking a ton of them. But when you live by the 3, sometimes you die by it. And when you're taking half your shots from 3 and you only make like 20-some%, that helps you die by the 3, and it helps you lose the game against Virginia Tech. We'll hear more from Lamont coming up in the next hour. 5 o'clock news sponsored by Integrated Media is coming up next here on the Postgame Show. CHW Cabinetry. Oh, we talk about Star and her crew. Look, forget that they're wonderful human beings who do a great job of customer service and do whatever you need to, get you the cabinetry that you want in the style you want in the budget you want to make you incredibly, fabulously happy to where you're hugging them almost to the point of uncomfortable. Now, also what they do at CHW Cabinetry is the quality of the work is fantastic. Go to chwcabinetry.com and just check it out. It's really good. And as you're going through this process with CHW Cabinetry, they will do these photorealistic renderings. You will see everything from beginning to end, the process playing itself out. Again, top level, top notch. CHW Cabinetry. Call and get the process started today. 803-520-6837. 803-520-6837. Yeah, okay. I don't know why that didn't start. But anyway, all righty. Check on the traffic. We got a few accidents to get to. Stop and go traffic first. I-20 westbound between Broad River Road and Bush River Road. That's between exit 65 and 63. Accidents, Clemson Road near Longtown Road, Divine Street near Woodrow. I-77 northbound between Garner's Ferry Road and Forest Drive. Old Woodlands Road at Garner's Ferry, also an accident. Two Notch at Brickyard, an accident as well. And Two Notch at Sparkleberry Lane. We'll jump back in here. The 5 o'clock news coming up from Integrated Media. Get you caught up on the day's headlines here on the Postgame Show. Oh, it's 5 o'clock news time, sponsored by Integrated Media here on the Postgame Show. Terry Ford, Jay again will be back with us tomorrow. All right. We'll get to the college football SEC story in a second. But first, in case you didn't hear, Landon Duckworth, 4-star quarterback from the state of Alabama. It was South Carolina. I mean, again, Duckworth had closed his recruitment a couple months ago, said he was committed to South Carolina, was going to be ready to roll and sign early signing day. Then yesterday, Duckworth delayed it. Lane Kiffin, who was recruiting Duckworth when Kiffin was at Ole Miss, kind of started putting the foot to the gas yesterday with Duckworth. Now that Kiffin's at LSU. So Duckworth kind of seemed like delayed the decision today, a little bit after 3. Landon Duckworth did sign his letter of intent to play at South Carolina. So Landon Duckworth in the fold as a Gamecock. So was Julian Walker. Was a Michigan commit, but South Carolina flips Walker, the 4-star edge from Dutch Fork. So Julian Walker also in the mix for the Gamecocks. So a top 20 class for South Carolina in the early signing period. If you didn't hear, Xavier Hardy, interior defensive lineman last year, a big get from the JUCO ranks. One of the best JUCO players in the country last year. Hardy didn't really get on the field at South Carolina and has now popped himself in the portal. Yesterday, offensive lineman Nick Sharp also jumped into the portal. And no new news on anything regarding offensive coordinator hiring for South Carolina. Shane Beamer, though, was asked regarding the portal, really regarding the offseason, with Lenora Sellers and Dylan Stewart and Nick Harbor and their decisions they have to make in the offseason. Obviously, with Harbor and Sellers, do you want to go to the NFL draft? With Dylan Stewart, I guess it's about staying at South Carolina. Here is Shane Beamer talking about those players yesterday during his early signing day presser.
No, it absolutely is, and that's what I've conveyed to Lenoris, Dylan, Nicholas Harbor, Brandon Cisse, Jalen Kilgore. I mean, there's a lot of guys that have NFL decisions that they can make. I mean, that's a few. There's anybody that's been in college football for 3 years has the ability to go to the NFL if they want, but certainly those guys are guys that have decisions to make, and you know, I don't want to rush them, but certainly I've told those guys that the quicker, and I've told their families when I've talked to them, the quicker that they make a decision, the better it is for all of us in regards to hiring offensive coaches. They want to know, is Nicholas Harbor and Lenora Sellers, am I going to be coaching them if I come to South Carolina? So the quicker I can tell them yes, the better that is for all of us, this entire program. Same thing from a, defensive standpoint as we go down the road with the portal on offense and defense. Guys that want to come here and play, they want to know, who's going to be there with them. So, yeah, I want everybody to make the right decision for them, Phil, when the time is right. We're not pressuring anybody. Those are conversations that I've had with those guys leading into this week. Those are conversations that I've had with those guys this week. I'm not going to give you my deepest, most inner feelings, but I do know this. Those are all, if you talk about Dylan and Lenore specifically, those are great young men, and Nicholas too, that really believe in what we're doing. And my conversations with them are they're extremely excited about what this team could be in 2026. And they're a big part of that. There's no question. And I don't think I know there's no sense of, I'm not really sure South Carolina's where I want to be. It's them making the best decisions for them and their families and their futures. And my conversations with them and their families have been awesome, along with, agents that they have. And we want them to do what's best for them. And we've got to do what's best for our overall program. There's no question about it. But I think all those young men, they believe in what we're doing here. They know what kind of team we can have in 2026. They're extremely disappointed about what we did in 25, and they're extremely hungry about 2026. That doesn't mean that I'm saying they're coming back, but I know if they don't come back, it's not going to be because they're unhappy or don't believe in the direction of where we're headed. That's for sure.
Okay, real quick. It's one that the thing I take out of all that conversation from Shane, I obviously appreciate the answer. Lenore Sellers and Nick Harbor can go to the NFL. And their decision is going to be where their possible draft position will be, right? That's what they're going to wait for. Get some feedback from folks in the NFL, get an idea of where they could be slotted in the draft, and then make their choice. But the one that out of those three I circle is Dylan Stewart, because Dylan Stewart can't go to the NFL. Dylan Stewart has another year of eligibility. So obviously, Dylan Stewart coming back to South Carolina is not like a no-brainer or a done deal or anything of that nature. That's going to be NIL money or rev share money or whatever the case is going to be with Dylan Stewart. Basically, it's the compensation for Dylan Stewart. And Shane said, well, none of them are happy with the direction of the program. They're all happy to be here. They all believe in what the program is doing. So if Dylan Stewart is that way and he believes in the program and he's happy and he's not frustrated and all that stuff, then what would be the reason? And again, there could be a multitude. I mean, Dylan Stewart is not from South Carolina. Dylan Stewart is, again, a young man, and he'll make decisions maybe differently than you or I would. Could be. We're not in the same shoes. But with Dylan Stewart, if he is happy with the direction of the program, if he's not frustrated, if he still believes, if he's happy, then why would he leave? Because he could leave. Remember, South Carolina last year had to pony it up. Almost every team in America would be better with Dylan Stewart coming off the edge. If not every team. Even if you got a really good edge defender, Dylan Stewart on the other side would make you better. So it lends to the, and again, we're not breaking news because we've been talking about it. This lends really to the idea of, can you make Dylan Stewart, in whatever reason he might want to leave, can you fix that, whether it's just something as simple as NIL money, or is it something else that you and I have no idea about? Can you, South Carolina, take care of that in Dylan Stewart's mind to make sure he comes back and plays for you? But it's a something, and really, Shane, kind of by putting Dylan Stewart in that conversation with Nick Harbor, Lenore Sellers, gives you the idea that it could be a something. So we'll see. And we'll get back to some more from Shane Beamer coming up in our Gamecock Notebook as well. Okay. Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer says he doesn't have interest in any other jobs. Now, DeBoer, there has been smoke around Kalen DeBoer to Penn State. So Kalen DeBoer today, I didn't even have a chance to pull the sound, but Kalen DeBoer today said this, I know it's shocking. We're extremely happy at Alabama, DeBoer said, ahead of this weekend's SEC championship game against number 3 Georgia. What else would you say would you get up to the presser and go, kind of not digging this Tuscaloosa, tired of following the GOAT, tired of hearing about Nick Saban, I want to get the hell out of here? Of course not. More from Kalen DeBoer. We're extremely happy here. Love the challenge. Love the grind. Love this place. There's never been any link. There's never been any conversation. There's never been any interest either way. So I'm glad we can put that to bed right now. Again, Kalen DeBoer himself might not have ever talked to the people at Penn State. But that doesn't mean Kalen DeBoer's people haven't. Just saying. But it is interesting that Penn State, they look so bad right now. They just do. They fired James Franklin 6 games into the season after Franklin coached them to the college football playoff semis. Yeah, they didn't beat anybody because James Franklin can't beat top 10 teams. But Penn State got a good draw, made it to the semifinals, and were a turnover away from possibly playing for the championship. 6 games later, Penn State couldn't wait to fire Franklin. They're tired of the record in big games against top 10 teams. And that loss to Oregon at home, the fall to 3-1, was like, here we go. We spent all this money on this roster. We brought everybody back for James. We spent a lot of money on coordinators. And there he goes again, losing a big game. We're done with this guy. So then you have the 2 terrible losses in a row. That was it. Could not wait to run James Franklin off. And that's fine. That's your choice. I get it. James Franklin's record against top 10 teams is embarrassingly awful. Understand. But then you're telling everyone, your fan base, your players, your administration, your student body, everybody in State College, everybody in Pennsylvania, everybody in the world, that you're going to go do better than James Franklin. How's that working for you? Kalani Sitake at BYU used your alleged interest to get more dough out of BYU. A lot of people thought that Penn State figured they would, without a problem, get Curt Signees. Again, he's a guy from that region. Signees said, nah, I'm good at Indiana. Thanks, though. And then you see these other coaches get hired. What's Penn State doing? You're not hearing about anybody who is being sniffed around the job. Bob Chesney was put up there, the coach from James Madison. I think Bob Chesney's a hell of a football coach. But Penn State was telling you they're going to go get the big fish, the big dog, the big guy that's going to come in and do better than James Franklin. Where's he at? I've heard Brian Dable now. So you run off James Franklin, you're going to bring in a guy in Brian Dable who was an assistant in college, but unless my brain fog is totally fogging me up and I need windshield wipers for it and defrost, I don't think Brian Dable's ever coached a college football team. And we talk about this all the time. It's very rare the NFL coach who can coach in college and be successful, or the college coach can go to the NFL and coach successful if they have no experience at the other stop. I mean, is it Brian Dable? So go back to this whole thing with Kalen DeBoer. The rumbling started a couple weeks ago that the reason there was all this radio silence coming out of Penn State is they were waiting for Kalen DeBoer's season to end. That could be true. I don't know, but if it is true, why are you talking to Sitake at BYU? But it's a very interesting thing to play itself out. If you're DeBoer, I understand it, man. Following Nick Saban's not easy. 2 years of it might be enough, and you might be like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I'm done. I am done. Hey, guess who cleared concussion protocol? J.J. McCarthy, quarterback at Minnesota. Clears concussion protocol. Final step to getting to the starting lineup. And look, it's not happening for J.J. McCarthy right now. Could it change? Sure. His first season as a starter has not been good. McCarthy's either been bad or injured. The whole Viking offense is cratered. The Viking season is cratered. And a lot of it, not everything, but a lot of it circles around the play of J.J. McCarthy, which just hasn't been good. Just hasn't. So now coming back from concussion protocol, we'll see what McCarthy can do once he goes back into the lineup again. And I'm going to say this. Kevin Stefanski, the head coach Kevin O'Connell. Wrong Kevin. Kevin O'Connell, the head coach in Minnesota. I mean, look what he's done with quarterbacks, whether it's Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold. This guy is a quarterback whisperer, and right now, so far, and again, you still have a lot of time. With J.J. McCarthy, it's not getting to his head. So McCarthy's going to come back and see if he can get it going, because Minnesota did a lot to make J.J. McCarthy their starting quarterback, and so far they haven't gotten a return, but it's his first year as a starter. So everybody needs to just breathe a little bit. But, again, so far you haven't seen a lot to make you hopeful. All right, there is the 5 o'clock news sponsored by our Buds Integrated Media. We'll come back, Gamecock Notebook. More from Lamont Paris and Shane Beamer next on the Postgame Show. Post-game show. Time to check out the Gamecock notebook for today. Again, just like we started the news, because it's important news to Gamecock fans. South Carolina, a good day for the Gamecocks. First of all, Landon Duckworth, 4-star quarterback, had verbaled to South Carolina. Seemed like that was going to hold easy. Shut down his recruitment 6-8 weeks ago. Then all of a sudden, here comes Lane Kiffin, who had been recruiting him when Kiffin was at Ole Miss. Kiffin kind of like, ratcheted it up, tried to have Duckworth flip to LSU, but at the end of the day, Landon Duckworth inks it up with South Carolina. He will be a Gamecock. And look, I mean, both teams have question marks in the quarterback room, possibly. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier's gone at LSU. Lenore Sellers could be gone at South Carolina. So Landon Duckworth, depending on how everything goes, you might be able to get some run or move up a depth chart quick or whatever the case. So Landon Duckworth is a South Carolina Gamecock. And so is Julian Walker, who flipped from Michigan today and signed with South Carolina. The 4-star edge from Dutch Fork will be a Gamecock as well. So you didn't get one flipped on you, but you flipped one from somebody else. So good early signing day for South Carolina. Shane Beamer talking to the media yesterday. And one of the things that was brought up was leadership. We've talked about leadership. All the shows on this radio station in some way, shape, or form. Guests have been asked about leadership with this football team. Here is Shane Beamer discussing the issue of leadership with his squad in 2025. As soon as I click it, and it actually goes.
Yes, we need to get older, whether that's in the portal or whether that's with the returning team. And we will automatically be older next year and more battle tested because of who we have coming back. It is what it is. If you look at the teams that we played this season, like compare the number of seniors that played for us compared to Vanderbilt. I think Missouri started more seniors on defense than we started on offense and defense combined. I think Alabama started more seniors on defense than we started on offense and defense combined. So to me, your best teams are your older teams. And, frankly, this season, and youth isn't an excuse. Like, you're going to have young teams, and I've been around young teams that are great. That's awesome. But there's no substitute for experience. And then in addition to that, the leadership. And we played we played 3 veteran teams this season that literally are having, you could argue, the greatest seasons in the history of their football program. Like, I don't know what some of the teams we lost to, what their history was back in the 50s. I'm sure they won a national championship in like 1954 or something. But as long as I've been alive, you could argue there's about 3 teams right now that are potentially going to the playoff that are having the best seasons in the history of their football program. And they were veteran teams. And we ran into those teams this season, and we're going to be an older team next year. Our team on Monday morning, Lulu, they voted on permanent captains. And, of the permanent captains that they voted, I think we voted 5 that had the most votes. I think 3 of them have eligibility left. And then of the top 20 vote getters for captain, there's like 14 of them that are going to be coming back on next year's team. So we're going to be older, and you're going to have that leadership. So we're going to have a leader, an older team that has great player leadership automatically because of who we have coming back, and we will be older with more juniors and seniors. But certainly we're looking for guys that have those leadership qualities. It's hard to find. You go into high schools, like as a head coach now, I'm only allowed on the road literally in the month of January, period, unless I go out during the season, which I did every opportunity this year. I went out every Thursday and Friday of a bye week. I was out recruiting. I think next year we only have 1 bye week, and I don't like going out on Fridays because I'm with the team on Friday. So if that means I'm only going out Thursday and Friday next year during the bye week, I've got 2 days in the fall and I've got 3 weeks in January, and that's the only time I'm in a high school, and that's tough. But you do as much evaluation as you can, talk to the high school coaches, talk to the people in the schools about what kind of people and leadership guys they are. Then when they get in our program, we have to do an awesome job of helping to, teach and develop. I think you can develop that leadership in a lot of ways and put them in positions where they're forced to lead. And absolutely, as we attack the portal, we'll be looking for guys that are older guys that have leadership qualities, where you could bring in a guy like like a Nick Gargiulo, who arrived in January and was voted a permanent captain by his teammates 11 months later or in December, or Torricelli Simpkins, or Demetrius Knight, guys like last season, who, when you think about the greatest leaders to ever come through here, I think about those guys in a lot of ways, and they were transfer portal guys. So yes, yes, and yes, to answer your question.
So yes, yes, and yes from Shane. And, he talked about kind of things we were yapping about during the season as we watched this football team, is just the idea that it felt like there was a leadership void. And, last year you had leaders, and Shane nailed it. A lot of those leaders did come through the portal. Not all of them, to be fair. Boogie Huntley, Tonka Hemingway, they had been in the program for a long period of time. Rashawn Lee, I think Rashawn Lee had been in the program since Spurrier was the head coach. I mean, another guy that had been around for a long time. But the portal additions of a Demetrius Knight, a Kyle Kennard, a Josh Simon, a Rocket Sanders, a Torricelli Simpkins. You had guys come in who were like grown men with families, driving SUVs, going to Joanne Fabric with the wife. They were living the life some of us poor schlubs were living. And at the end of the day, it just, they didn't have that this year. Just didn't. And I think that was an issue. Look, Lenore Sellers and Dylan Stewart were your two best players talent-wise on this football team. Neither is a vocal guy or a big alpha dog, and that's okay. I mean, look, in a perfect world, you want your quarterback to be that leader. But last year, they weren't asked to be that because you had a locker room full of those guys. And that's an issue. It just is. And so Shane even said, we got to get some more vets in here. We just do. Some more leaders like that. All right, let's switch over. Lamont Paris on Carolina Calls last night as we do the Gamecock Notebook. Lamont's still trying to get a feel for the rotations of this this basketball team as the season is rolling toward the start of conference play. Here's Lamont talking about the rotations.
A better feel. I think there's still some inconsistencies with a couple of guys, that are fully capable of helping us and have helped us, and then on another day look like they may not be able to help us much, and then another day they look like they're definitely going to help us. So there's still a couple of guys that we're trying to figure that out with in terms of consistency, but I think we're much closer as some of these guys continue to develop. If you look at what Elijah Strong has done over the last 3-4 games, especially, I think we're getting there. We're getting there. Now, getting the group, I joked with our guys that sometimes you have a team that starts 5 guys on game number 1, and then on game number 32, it's those same 5 guys that are starting. This is not that team.
Right.
And so we'll still be fine-tuning what that best first group looks like, but guys are starting. Some guys are starting to fall into what their role will be a little bit better.
I mean, you're trying to figure it out, and what you've seen is right now, obviously you got Michi Johnson, Michi in the backcourt. Eli Ellis, whether he starts or not, he's in the game crunch time when it matters. Elijah Strong's not starting, but he's in the game crunch time when it's go. Obviously, our guy Mongolian Mike's in the game. Share Jamps. I mean, I like him. I think I'd like to see him be a little more aggressive, but I like the way, he's got a little bit of everything. He's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none guy. He can score a little bit, pass a little bit, rebound a little bit, handle the ball a little bit. But I would like, and Lamont said, and we played the cut earlier, where they might start running more offense through Share Jamps. I mean, he had some important buckets late in that Virginia Tech game. I just think, running the offense through him more, probably a good idea because, again, Eli Ellis has surprised me how well he's played the point at times, but still, he's a freshman. And Michi, God love him, is more of a 2. Here's your Gamecock Notebook. We'll come back and drive around the SEC next on the Postgame Show. get our check on traffic. There is an accident. St. Andrews, left lane is blocked. I-126 westbound to Greystone. Also, I-26 at Harbison Boulevard. I-20 eastbound at Broad River Road, exit 65, and Killian Road at Farrow Road. We'll get your drive around the SEC coming up next. Do not forget tonight on our sister station B106, women's basketball, the Gamecocks host Louisville. Again, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip on our sister station B106. And tomorrow night, live from the state championships in Orangeburg, it's our Friday night high school football scoreboard show with Justin and Elijah. That's 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Drive around the SEC coming up. Very interesting news coming out of Gainesville in our drive around the SEC. John Sumrall has hired his offensive and defensive coordinators. Start off, the defensive coordinator, very familiar to Gamecock fans. Kentucky's DC, Brad White. With Mark Stoops for a long time was Brad White. White is now the defensive coordinator at Florida. Look, my thing with Brad White is this. Nice guy, by the way. Good man. What Brad White did as defensive coordinator at Kentucky, how much of that was Brad White? How much of that was Brad White was just running Mark Stoops' defense? Because that defense was Mark Stoops' baby. We'll find out. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you bring that defensive coordinator from a coaching staff where the head coach was a DC or a former DC. You find out that that defensive coordinator just had a title, but it was the head coach who was really running the defense, and the quote-unquote defensive coordinator was, just the guy sitting in the head coach's office. So, boss, what do you need me to do today for you? Got any chores? You need any help around the house? So, we'll see. But Brad White was the coordinator of a Kentucky defense that was good many years under Mark Stoops. The offensive coordinator, this is a very interesting hire. Georgia Tech's Buster Faulkner. That feels like an excellent hire. Look at Buster Faulkner's offense at Georgia Tech with Haynes King. Georgia Tech's offense this year was explosive. Faulkner had SEC experience being at Georgia on the coaching staff. Georgia Tech's offense, top 30 in total yards over the past 3 years. This year, 12th ranked in the country, averaged 38 points a game. Quote from John Sumrall. I may be a defensive guy, but I want to be more of a defensive guy like Bob Stoops. I want the scoreboard to light up. And that's good to hear if you're a Florida fan, because sometimes, again, these defensive coordinators who become head coaches, they can't stop being defensive coordinators. They play to their defense to the detriment of their offense and their football teams. They're always protecting their defense. The offense is conservative. I don't want this offense putting my defense in a bad position. Well, no, hey, head coach, it's also your offense. You're not the defensive coordinator anymore. Look at the press guide. You're now the head coach. So if you're a Gator fan, you love hearing Sumrall say he wants to light the scoreboard. Now, that sounds good right now in December, but how are you going to be when you're in game situations and the fertilizer's hitting the fan? Are you going to be making decisions for the best of your football team or for the best of your defense? The flip side's Lincoln Riley for years, right? Lincoln Riley didn't care about defense. Lincoln Riley's going to win every game 100-96. Who cares? But now it seems like Lincoln Riley's getting the idea. You've got to play. If you want to win on a high level, you're not going to win 100-96. you better have a defense that can stop the other team enough for your fancy offense. Or in those days, your fancy offense isn't clicking, you better have a defense that can come in and go, you know what, guys, we got this. Don't worry about it. So we'll see what goes on with John Summerall. But, man, I really like the hire of Buster Faulkner. Now, again, Buster Faulkner was getting over $1 million at Georgia Tech. So Florida must have really pumped up that. We'll find out what the salary is against a public university. Buster Faulkner, my guess, has got a nice raise to go to Florida to become the offensive coordinator. Again, we'll see what Brad White brings. If he can, if he's a guy that was heavily involved in building that Kentucky defense along with Stoops, it's a good hire. If he was just, mowing Stoops' lawn and painting the porch and wasn't really the DC, then, we'll see. But John Summerall makes his hire as offensive and defensive coordinators at Florida. By the way, I don't know if you saw on social media the video of Summerall coming in. I mean, crickets, just like the Florida cheerleaders. Wasn't a whole lot going on regarding there wasn't a lot of big fan base and big old, pep rally like it was at Auburn. It was kind of interesting, kind of funny. But again, who cares about winning the press conference? You win on the field. That's the way I've always thought of this stuff. All right, one game in the SEC in men's hoops is a good one. Number 11, Gonzaga, will go to Lexington, play Kentucky at Rupp. And Gonzaga's 3.5-point favorite. We'll talk more about that coming up in our next segment, probably. But Kentucky so far this year, they already have 3 losses, sitting at 5-3. Their losses to number 12 Louisville, which made Kentucky fans quite happy, as we say sarcastically. Number 17 Michigan State, and number 16 North Carolina. That's the 3 losses. So they've lost to 3 ranked teams. But right now they don't have like a big wow win. Except, it depends, I guess, your point of view. Nichols, Valparaiso, Eastern Illinois, Loyola of Maryland, Tennessee Tech. Basically, if you smack the cupcakes and you've gotten beat by ranked teams. And you lost at home to North Carolina in the ACC SEC Challenge. Losing at Rupp, not a good idea. Michigan State game, that was a State Farm Championship game. That was a neutral court baby, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so Kentucky's had some struggles. Gonzaga surprised some folks. Some people didn't think Gonzaga would be as good as they've been early in the year. Their only loss was to Michigan, where they just got dismantled in that tournament, that players' tournament. Got whooped by 40, and that was coming off beating Maryland by, 39? And the game wasn't even that close. And they also took out Alabama, Creighton. I mean, Gonzaga had been hooping, and then Michigan just boat raced them. But Gonzaga's been good. You know what Gonzaga's doing this year? Playing defense. So, again, it'll be an interesting game tonight at Rupp, Gonzaga, and Kentucky. There's your drive around the SEC. We'll pop back. We'll do, in honor of Jay Phillips, do a little Jay versus the internet without him. Jay will be back tomorrow. We'll take a look at some of the wagering angles for tonight in the world of sports. And grab maybe another cut from Shane Beamer and Lamont Paris about their respective teams before we get out of here. Post-game show. Terry Ford, thanks a lot for hanging out with us. By the way, we are back to full power. So you can get in your car, turn it on, and hear us again. Thank you for your patience. Post-game show on the game in Columbia, Florence, Charleston, Myrtle Beach. A little Jay versus the internet without Jay. We'll throw out a couple for tonight. From a wagering angle, Cowboys in Detroit to face the Lions. Dallas has been on a heater, man. They really have. Cowboys, within a 5-day span, took out the last two teams that played in the Super Bowl. They also beat the Raiders. Cowboys have won 3 straight. And what's that's done for their season? Well, put them in position to sniff the playoffs, but that's pretty much about it. Dallas is still rolling with 6-5-1. You look at Dallas on the road this year, lost in Philly, lost in Chicago, did beat the Jets, but that doesn't count as a win. Lost in Carolina to the Panthers, lost to the Broncos on the road, did beat the Raiders on the road. Look, everybody's down the lines. There's injuries. Again, they lost both their coordinators. All these things can be true. And I know the Lions have been scuffling of late. I do. But I just get the feeling this is a game where all the people who jump up and down about the Cowboys get disappointed. I just do. I think coming off that loss to the Packers on Thanksgiving, I believe the Lions will get a win over Dallas at home and cover the 3.5. Detroit this year at home really quick just to get you caught up 1-2-0, 3-0, 3-1. Still 4-1 at home despite their struggles. So I think the Lions at home, even injury-depleted version of the Lions, will win and cover that 3.5 against Dallas. All right, Kentucky at home versus Gonzaga. Gonzaga's a 3.5-point favorite going to Rupp. I believe Kentucky gets themselves straightened out against Gonzaga at home. Again, Gonzaga is a much different basketball team this year. They are playing deep. They are a better defensive team than an offensive team if you look at the numbers. But Kentucky's top 20 in offense and defense as well. I think Kentucky at home pulls a W. And they cover that 3.5 against Gonzaga. All right, there's a little Jay versus the internet. Again, our co-host, our bud Jay Phillips, will be back tomorrow to hang out with us on a Friday. All right, real quick. Shane Beamer, Lamont Paris, both talking to the media yesterday. Here's, let's get to, got to get a quick one from Shane. Let's get Shane talk about his exit meetings with his players coming off of a very, very disappointing season. Here's Coach Beamer.
I've been having exit meetings all week with guys. I've got about 40 to go over the next 2 days. Been meeting with guys since Monday, and they've been extremely, extremely, extremely positive. They're extremely hungry about 2026. They are adamant, just like I am, that we need to get the right guys in this locker room. And guys that may not be the right fit in that locker room, then they won't be here in 2026. And we're hard at work on getting the right people in the locker room and on that bus as we go into 2026. Our guys know that we went toe-to-toe with the best teams in the nation this season, and return a core group of talented guys and older guys that will be leaders on this team next season. It sucked going through this past season, but we will be so much better in 26 because of what we went through just now in 25, and we'll finish up those meetings with these guys this week, but can't wait to get started. Already have started, but can't wait to get everybody back here in January and get going on the 2026 football team. So,
I mean, look, I know that Shane Beamer's in that area right now where nothing you say makes everybody happy because, again, you're coming off an awful season. But, I mean, you want your coach to say, well, we want to get at it, get this taste out of our mouth, and turn this thing around for 26. That's what you want to hear in some way, shape, or form. And you want to hear that about the players, too. And that's why, look, Shane held this thing together after that 5-7 2 years ago, and they lost very few guys to the portal. So we'll see how it goes this year. But, yeah, you want everybody to be ready to rock and roll now. Heck, let's start today. Let's go. Let's get this taste out of our mouth. It's awful. Lamont Paris talking to the media yesterday, we talked on Carolina Calls last night here on the game, and discussed the effect of having a very tough loss in a game that you could have won against Virginia Tech Tuesday night?
You play when you play, and then just the emotions of a game go up and down throughout the game. But you don't have a great half. You give up a lead. You work to bring it back, and then it was pretty much nip and tuck the rest of the game. And then anytime there's drama like that at the end of the game, and you have opportunity, and you don't cash in on it, those are hard, tough losses to accept. Ultimately, you have to do that, grow from them, and to think that some sort of situation similar to that won't happen again the rest of the season probably would be naive. So hopefully that's something that we'll file away and be able to make some adjustments.
And again, that's Lamont Paris from Carolina Calls last night with Derek Scott heard here on the Game in Columbia and our affiliate in Myrtle Beach. All right, so, Lamont, you just got to bounce back. You learn. That's one good thing about playing these early season games, these non-conference tilts, is you can build and learn and grow from them. Hopefully that's kind of the goal, right? Because you don't want to continue to make the same mistakes over and over again through the whole season. And, you were there with Virginia Tech. You had a chance to win the basketball game. You couldn't take advantage of the end of regulation after you'd clawed yourself back to where you had actually taken the lead late. And then in overtime, you also had some opportunities, and you couldn't cash them in either. You hope you learn from that, grow from it, and you get better. You're 5-3. You should beat Stetson to go to 6-3. Right now, when you watch South Carolina, defensively, I think there's issues, not just in the interior, but on the perimeter as well. Offensively, move the ball, move without the ball. That was the formula early in the year. Obviously, the three-point shot's going to be big for this team, but they got to be able to score inside the three-point arc. I think Sharmajans can do it. Strong can. I think Michi's strong going to the basket. But the real thing to me is the defensive end of the court, about improving there. All right, coming up on our sister station, B106, we have basketball. Women's basketball taking on Louisville in the ACC SEC Challenge. Again, that's 6:30 on our sister station, B106, 7 o'clock tip. And we're going to give away some tickets for the Globetrotters for tomorrow night, coming up in just a minute. Globetrotter tickets will be given away on our text line coming up in just a few minutes. All right, before we do the Game Network traffic report, let's give you away some Globetrotter tickets for tomorrow night. Family 4-pack. Text us on our Firehouse Subtext line 803-404-6100. You want to go see the Globetrotters tomorrow night? A family 4-pack. Just text Globetrotters to 803-404-6100 right now. Text Globetrotters for your chance to win a family 4-pack. I would spell it for you, but I probably would mess it up. Globetrotters. Text it now, 803-404-6100. Accidents, Harbison Boulevard at I-26, I-20 Broad River Road, exit 65, I-20 westbound, also Broad River Road, exit 65, Killian Road at Farrow Road as well. Accident is cleared I-126 at Greystone Boulevard.